Master Modes continues to remain one of the most controversial upcoming changes to Star Citizen, and it makes sense. It is the biggest change and completely alters the flight model, essentially requiring all players, new or old, to train up and learn the new system and acquire a new set of skills. I personally think this is a great thing and view the Master Mode system as a net positive for the product as a whole. I am sure some of you are by now tired of hearing about it, and this video isn't simply going to be a rehash of the same things I have said in previous videos. If you want my full opinion on the system itself, you can go check those out and see for yourself. This video is instead going to address the concerns some very vocal players have. Nobody in particular, just so we're clear. I am also going to get into the nitty-gritty of CIG considering previous maneuvers such as quote-unquote tricording and 45s as exploits. So let's begin. Concern 1. Master Mode favors numbers. This concern is particularly popular and is often brought up numerous times. In general, I would argue that anything in an MMO will favor numbers, and it should. But there's a very significant difference between organized and disorganized numbers. If you have ever played an MMO game that focuses on teamwork and cohesion, you would know that smaller groups of well-organized and talented players can often take out larger and more disorganized players. Right now, Star Citizen in its active development state doesn't have what I feel are significant force multipliers or designs that would allow smaller, more organized groups to compete with larger groups. But before I begin, I want to be very honest with you. I am in the camp of the large groups, the large organized groups. It is my opinion that efficiently and effectively running a large cohesive unit is the pinnacle of MMO leadership skill and is something so difficult that very few people can do it correctly. The first traditional method of allowing a smaller and more organized group to fight a larger one is the usage of area of effect abilities. In fantasy settings, these are usually abilities that allow one character to damage multiple characters that are bunched up, and in more traditional military settings, this comes in a form of artillery, specialized vehicles, or anything else that allows a smaller group to amplify their force. Star Citizen isn't far away from having something similar and could, in theory, make minor adjustments to the already existing ships and weapons to fulfill this role. Ironically, in the promotional footage for the Antares, which I'm going to put on a screen now, you can see an excellent example of this theory in practice for the marketing material. A significantly larger force of ships is approaching a smaller group of Scorpius heavy fighters. These heavy fighters, as you know, require a pilot and a gunner, and should be far more effective than an individual solo ship. Before the fighters engage the oncoming squadron, an Antares, also a two-seat fighter armed with an EMP, flies through the middle of their formation and disables all of the ships. This is an excellent textbook example of both force multipliers and area of effect abilities being used by a smaller, more well-organized group to even the playing field against a larger and less organized group. With a few tweaks and balance changes, the game as it is right now could mimic this scenario, and it would immediately alleviate the first concern about numbers being favored. I'm going to give you a scenario now, and it is of course right now in the game's current state not possible, but let's do it anyway. A larger force of 12 single-seat fighters of various sizes is about to attack a smaller group of 6. The smaller group has 2 crewed Scorpius heavy fighters and a single crewed Antares heavy fighter. The group of 12 is flying close together. They're doing so because the speeds in Master Mode allow for such a thing to happen, and they're staying together to maximize their firepower. The Antares, a very durable ship with excellent shielding, heads straight for the pack. Full power to shields. The 2 Scorpius are behind it. The larger force can, and probably will, focus their fire on the Antares because it is in front, and it is also the most valuable target due to its EMP. They won't kill it in time, it's tough. It reaches the center of their formation and fires off an EMP. This could either temporarily disable the enemy ships, could be 10, 15, or even 30 seconds, and the Scorpius, with their superior individual firepower, begin to kill off the ships before they power on. Even if they do not get through all of them, they have now shifted the battle in their favor and are most likely to win. Let's look at the same scenario again, This time, the enemy fleet begins to scatter and break formation to avoid the EMP. The two Scorpius then single out and go after stragglers that have overextended to avoid the EMP blast. Since it is easier for 2 ships to coordinate as opposed to 12, they begin to score kills, and quickly. The Antares remains an ever-persistent threat that can and will disable the ships should they all get too close. This simple scenario perfectly highlights how with intelligent design, a smaller force can work together and defeat a larger one, and it's doing all of this with very easy to make tweaks within the game as it is right now. It's easy for someone entrenched in the numbers will always win argument to overlook the bigger picture if they haven't experienced similar situations in previous games, whether utilizing such strategies or being on the receiving end of them. And that's understandable. My aim is to help those unfamiliar with these dynamics understand them better. A larger force only becomes truly formidable when it's properly organized. Disorganized groups often falter and become easy targets, ultimately embarrassing themselves. If the concern centers around challenges like formation flying and the overwhelming advantage of sheer numbers, then the remedy lies in introducing specialized weapons and equipment aimed at disrupting formations. These tools could either inflict substantial damage to enemy ships or impair their effectiveness in combat. However, I'd argue that promoting formation flying as a beneficial skill isn't necessarily a negative goal for Star Citizen to pursue. Concern 2. Extended weapon ranges are detrimental to gameplay. I both agree and disagree with this one. The primary concern I have seen is that the longer weapon ranges favor disorganized numbers because they don't allow for smaller forces, or anyone, to safely disengage and reliably regenerate shielding. It only takes one shot, no matter the size of the weapon making the shot, to reset the shield's regeneration cooldown. I like the option of longer engagement ranges even if it isn't reliable because it allows for the balancing of larger, more specialized ships, such as the Hammerhead, to reach out and effectively damage ships before they are close enough to present a threat to the theoretical fleet it is assigned to act as a picket ship for. I also like the ranges because even if the fire is ineffective, it allows players to do something other than wait for an enemy to reach sub 1,000 meter range to begin engaging. The issue I do have, however, is that no matter how inaccurate the Kona fire makes it, 1 or 2 shots are very likely to hit and will cause those shields to go on cooldown. It also has the additional negative effect of allowing smaller ships to target and plink away at larger ones, effectively keeping their shields on cooldown. The solution? Constantly regenerating shields for all ships. This solution is rather elegant and doesn't break the balance at all. It actually helps it and remedies the more annoying chip damage, as I call it. Chip damage, being minor hits that are ineffective but annoying, becomes effective through their annoyance. Smaller ships having constantly regenerating shields isn't going to make much of an impact on them fighting at effective ranges. It would be hardly noticeable if at all. Larger ships will be able to shrug off the annoying damage smaller ships are placing upon them. It also has the added effect of allowing a player to make the decision to go full power to shields in order to sacrifice offensive play for more defensive play by potentially accelerating their generating effect. Outright dismissing the new weapon engagement ranges instead of balancing or designing around them isn't the solution here. The solution is to negate the effect of that chip damage, and the most elegant way to do it is by introducing a constant recharge effect. It also adds more value to how we use the power triangle, introducing choice in decision making instead of the current, heavily scripted, I am out of X, all power to Y system that we have now. It also encourages players to make a choice on, say, using cannons over repeaters, which, through their alpha damage, would help negate the regenerating effect at the cost of more reliable DPS. Concern 3. Master Modes is dumbing down the game. This may perhaps be the most common concern I see from what I consider to be the vocal minority of PvP players. You may be shocked to hear this, but I strongly disagree. While the system is far more approachable now, which is good for the health of the product, it simply shifts the skill away from individual mechanical skill and more towards cohesive group skill. The better team with the better pilots will win, not the better pilot versus the better team. During the most recent Star Citizen Live, Jared made a statement that was along the lines of Master Modes really beginning to shine during group battles, where players are working together, peeling for one another, and taking part in the organized chaos that is a furball. That simply doesn't happen right now with the current flight model. Even Yogi on Discord stated that he is absolutely fine with one ace pilot being killed by 5 average pilots, and I am too. How well you and your skill mesh within a team environment should be, and most likely will be, the determining factor of a victory, and that alone is a healthy design goal for any game. And quite frankly, I find the notion that a lone fighter being a threat to a squadron of fighters a preposterous one. As preposterous as the idea that a vulture can dogfight an arrow. For years, the PvP community has been saying, bring an escort to the PvE community. And while I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, I am now telling the PvP community to bring friends. It goes both ways. Maneuvers as exploits. Players have felt that maneuvers such as tricording and 45s were exploits, and with Master Modes, those maneuvers are going away. On the latest Star Citizen Live, Johnny said, and I quote, "It's avoiding situations where you're able to essentially exploit the fight system to kind of constantly play chase and not really have a proper one-on-one combat with someone, and you're constantly running away and not running away, so we felt that it was a positive change as we've been playing the game." I would have to agree with this. The entire concept of tricording is silly, unintuitive, and quite frankly, makes a mockery of the product and provides an unfair advantage to those who know it versus those who don't. And how would they know? Nothing in the game tells you about it, nothing teaches you about it. It is an exploit that goes beyond the understanding and intuition of your average player. It absolutely should not be a feature and skill set a player should have to learn to become good at Star Citizen. Thankfully, I am not the only one who agrees. Yogi said, and I quote, "As said before, currently successful racing and PvP combat are gated behind the usage of tricording. Limiting it will actively lower the entry level, which might encourage more players to participate in those activities. Additionally, without tricording, we have a good opportunity to focus more on the individual flight properties of the ships. Pulling an input device into the corners shouldn't be the skill in mastering your ships. It should be in mastering the ship dynamics itself." And I 100% agree with this. Those two maneuvers were gatekeeping PvP away from a significant portion of the player base, and their removal is an overwhelming positive for the game as a whole. Some people may bring up, say, bunny hopping from Quake, and praise the skill that introduced to the game. They even try to compare it to tricording. And the only things they have in common are they are both exploits and made the accessibility of the games needlessly difficult. But don't take my word for it. John Carmack, the man behind the Quake engine, didn't like it and wanted it removed too. As you can see in this post from 1999, he states, "Lots of hate mail from strafe jumpers. Some reasonable messages have convinced me that a single immediate jump after landing may be important to gameplay. I'll experiment with it. Strafe jumping is an exploitable bug. Just because people have practiced hard to allow themselves to take advantage of it does not justify its existence." What about Half-Life and the games built upon its engine tech, such as the popular Counter-Strike? Since Gold Source was a Quake derivative, it too had bunny hopping, and it was very prevalent in the old days of Counter-Strike. Turns out Gabe Newell didn't like it either, and in a 2003 interview, he said the following, "We don't particularly like bunny hopping. One game managed to successfully fight back against the sweatlords of their era, and another didn't. If it is still a mystery of which game removed bunny hopping, I'd simply ask you to check out on Steam how many players are in Counter-Strike versus those in Quake Live. I suppose I could also bring up skiing from Tribes 2, as that was also an exploit. They did eventually turn it into a feature, but the franchise is dead anyway. Turns out alienating your core audience of average players in favor of the temporary gratitude of the transient minority of turbo nerds results in a dead franchise. Thankfully, Star Citizen isn't repeating these mistakes and is removing the problematic and unintended features with Master Modes. Conclusion. While there will always be individuals who remain dissatisfied with Master Modes, attributing various issues to it and harboring a dislike for it on principle, these individuals constitute a minority, and the likelihood of them quitting the game is slim. Even if they did, the game would likely benefit from their departure. Players who choose to stay and are already proficient in the game's current flight model will likely excel in the upcoming one as well. Although they may need to adapt and learn new skills, their mindset will ensure that they do so effectively. Conversely, players who struggle with the current flight model will have an opportunity to ease into the game at a reasonable pace and gradually improve their skills in the new system. Ultimately, numbers will indeed matter, as they should. Teamwork, coordination, and the effective utilization of force multipliers and logistics will be the determining factors for victory. This level of organization and dedication will not only decide individual battles, but also shape the outcomes of larger conflicts and wars.